This piece right here, right there, goes up and down. You want to push it down, pull this up, push hard, and out. I'll get out, and then he'll push it out. And there you have the frame out.
Front seat rebuild. Here's the parts you'll need to rebuild your seats. We'll set these to one side and start off. Make sure that the seats haven't been hammered on in the back. Make sure the mechanism is free and moves side to side. First, we'll start by installing this part on the end of the shaft. Tap it to where it comes through about 1/8 of an inch on the end. Slip the shaft in through the seat frame. Line it up with this tab that's sticking up. Slide the other piece on the end, aligning it correctly. We have a shim here on one end to hold it so we have something to tap against. Now we use a rubber hammer to tap it on. Make sure that it's aligned. And then we tap it down to where it's 1/8 inch out on that end also. Make sure that it's free and it'll turn all the way around. Now there's these nails that are used to assemble your seat frames. You might need to grind them and sharpen the point on them a little bit. Now we're going to put the cams together. There's a right and a left cam. First we grease the spring that goes on this alignment pin, and that piece makes it so that as you adjust your cam it'll hold in each position. Make sure you put it in the correct spot, and then your rubber buffers that you took out you'll need to glue back into the same position they were in. There's that little cutout, and we're using some super glue. You could use silicone if you'd like. Clear silicone works fine. Use a razor blade to trim off the edges. That's the position that your backrest normally sits in, but this is an adjustable backrest so that you can lean it back if you wanted to. Now you put your shaft in, aligning the holes to where that you can drive your nail back through. You've already taken these apart, so you should have paid attention to how it was disassembled. Now that has the flat cam on the left. That would mean that it'll be the passenger seat. The cam that doesn't have the handle on goes towards the center tunnel. You want to put grease on this rod before you slip it in. He's sliding the hook on, and then he puts on the plastic piece and aligns it. There's a notched out area where the spring will go in. It's been greased and then slide it in through the shaft. Align the cam to where it fits into that slot. Move your cam around to where it's in this position. Pop it in. Your plastic alignment pin needs to plug into that area right there. We're using a piece of cloth and a little clamp to hold it in place so we can work on the other side. Now we're going to install the adjustable cam side and the hook. You notice it fits on over that pin. You want that hole in the cam to line up with the hole that's in the shaft. You want that aligned with the pin going into the frame properly. Okay, now he's putting in the nail. Take a look at it, and your hooks should be in parallel to each other, and you should be able to adjust the cam to your different reclining positions. Now you're going to take your spring and install it onto your frame. Just hooks right there, and you can use a pair of needle nose pliers, or if you got strong fingers you can just pull it up with your hand and hook it on. There you go. This completes the recliner mechanism, or the adjustable seat mechanism. Make sure the tabs are bent straight up before you put your spring frame on. You can take a large flat blade screwdriver or a blunt round piece of rod and come in and tap those over. Try not to scratch up your powder coating if you can help it. You want to do the front and the rear and then the sides. This holds your spring frame to your seat frame. It's a simple design and it's worked well for a lot of years. That's the way Volkswagen's made seats for 30 years. Tap down those pieces of metal to where it's tight. And you got it. Now we're going to put a protection cover over the springs. Now the factory didn't use this, but we've found over the years that the coconut fiber falls through onto the floor and they rot from the inside out. Well, with this piece on there, it'll make your seat padding last a lot longer and your springs won't come up and cut your padding. You want to hog ring it in the front first, pull it tight to the rear, hog ring it in the back, and then just work all the way around the sides. And when you're done, it should be nice and tight. The edges will kind of spring up a little bit, but that's fine. Then take a razor blade and just trim around the edge, or a pair of scissors. Now we're putting on the coconut fiber padding. These are the correct paddings for the seats, made by the same vendor that manufactured them for Volkswagen. It's the only way to make a Volkswagen seat look like a Volkswagen seat. Foam rubber just doesn't do the trick. If you need, take a screwdriver or putty knife and kind of pry around the springs and get the lip of the pad down and over. Now we're going to put on a soft cover over the coconut fiber. The coconut fiber's got a little rough finish to it, and Volkswagen used a product called coach whiting. It was a reprocessed cotton product, but we're going to use we usually send you a piece of fake fur or something, and it works real well. In fact, I think it's a little better quality product. If you notice, our seat covers have on the cushions, we have a sewn-in stainless steel wire. Like the factory put a wire in them, but we actually use stainless so it won't rust. We flip the front of the seat cover to where the face side is out, and then try to keep the tail on the welt facing down. That's that little strip of material that's left over when you sew the edge, and you want it to be facing down on your cushion. Now the back, we don't flip it out yet. Then we go ahead and slip it on over the seat on the front, and so that little edge around it is all facing down. And as you go, you can kind of work it and try to get it down. Now in the back, you notice we put a little piece of material over the corner to reinforce it. And you want to stretch it out over the corner and flip it down. Be careful you don't stretch it too hard, you could tear it out. But take care, and then do the same thing on the other corner. Now you want to feel that edge and make sure that the tail of the welt is all facing down. Okay. Now look on the back edge. Make sure that the welt is centered on the seat frame. The welt meaning the beading around the edge. Okay. Then go to the front and start hooking the wire itself on over the hooks. You can feel the wire inside the seat cover right on the edge, and you want the wire to be right on the edge, and then hook it over. Okay. So do both the fronts, and then come around the side, pull the material up and towards the rear. Now we're going to hook it again on the rear, and making sure the material is pulled back tight so there's no wrinkles on the skirt of your seat. Get this wire up free and slip it through the side of the seat frame, because we'll be attaching that later. Repeat the same thing on the other side, pulling the skirt material towards the rear of the seat, making sure the wire is right at the very edge of the loop, and then hook it over your little tabs on your seat. Don't hammer the edges, the little tabs over yet, because you may need to readjust it if you find that when you pull the wire tight that there's some little ripples. You can readjust where you've hooked it on. Take a pair of pliers and pull it back, and then wrap it around your spring frame. That'll hold it in position. Then you can crimp it down so that it won't slip. 2 times around, then it'll hold it. And crimp it again. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Now you have one side secured. As you pull this side around, it will actually cinch up the cushion and make it uniform all the way around the edge. Now we're going to slip a wire into the back of the cushion. Now this is a stiff wire. You should have saved your original ones. If not, I suggest that you use a galvanized or stainless steel wire. You want about 1 inch short on each end so that you can fold the ends in. Make sure that it's aligned right again. Fold the end underneath your wire next. Now we're ready to secure the cushion in the back. We're going to hammer it over and we're going to wire it on. Don't stab your finger, but you just push right through the vinyl. You can take an awl and punch a hole in it, or sometimes you can just take the wire and push it through. Just pull this up fairly firm. You don't want to pull it too far, but you want it to where it's about the same tension all the way across. And then just wrap this wire around a few times and secure it. And stuff the wire down into your spring frame after you've laced it up there a bit. You look at a VW seat from the early 50s, this is exactly the way they were done. Do the same thing on the other side of your seat. Secure it. All you got to do is knock down the tabs and you've got that cover installed. That didn't take too long. And just do your other seat frame the same way. Don't forget to put your recliner cams on opposite. The seat you're looking at here is a right-hand seat. Check your edges and make sure that the tails are facing down. And you can check your release handle, make sure it's free, tap the knob onto the end of it. Spray a little WD-40 on that mechanism so that your handle works freely, so that your seat is locked and won't slide forward. On the front backrest, first thing we do is install the protective panel that goes behind the springs. Center it up there, and then put your backrest spring on top of your cardboard. Line it all up to where it's in the correct position all the way around. You can feel it. You want the same amount of cardboard sticking out on each side. And we're using a little electric drill with a Phillips tip on it. It makes it real easy. Just run the same screws back in. Now don't get them tight. Leave it loose so that you can adjust it and get the cardboard to where it's the same distance all the way around. Put the other screws in up on the top edge there. You don't want to tighten them until all the screws are in and it's all aligned. Now that it's all aligned, you can tighten them all up. Now see, these springs are all painted and the frame is all powder coated, and that'll last a long time. The original springs just had Cosmoline on them. Sometimes they rusted out. Now there's some tabs in there, similar to the tabs that were on the cushion to hold the spring frame. You want to tap those up through the hole in the cardboard, and then lay the seat frame the other direction, and then tap them right on over until they're tight. And that completes installing the spring. Next, you're going to put the protective ripstop vinyl over your spring frame before you put your padding on, just like you did on your cushion. Hog ring the top and bottom tight, and then go around the sides. Get plenty of hog rings in, and then just take and trim the material on. Now we're ready to put the seat padding on. Slip it down over from the top. Just flip the sides out and get it to come down over the springs. You can tap it down with your hands. Make sure that little tube goes underneath or it'll be sticking up. Then just tap it on down. Now we're ready to put on the protective fabric that makes it smooth. Line that up to where it just comes down to the bottom. You don't want a whole bunch of that material hanging out on the bottom part of your seat, or you'll have a hard time getting your cover over. Check your seat cover, make sure you have the front. That line is the back, so put it towards you, and then there's the front. Open it up, just put it on a couple inches and then go to the other side. Slide it on a couple inches. Now slide your whole cover all the way down. Just hold on to the sides and come down with it. Okay. Now massage it and just work the sides down nice and smooth until the cover is tight. And check the tails on the side of your seat cover to make sure that it's aligned and the tails aren't hanging out towards the face of the seat. Fits nice and tight. You got that protective board under it. That protective board is so that people bump the back of the seat, it won't tear out the cover. Alright. Get that tail flipped down. We're ready to put the wires in. Pay attention now while you're doing your seat that you've got your cover on there straight where it's not twisted. You want the same amount of welt on each side, and you want the welt to line up with the frame. Alright, first you hook on the face of it, the insert, the front part of your seat. Then turn your seat around and hook on the back. Just pull that up with your fingers and clip it over. Again, paying attention to the alignment. Make sure that your cover is centered over your seat frame. Now you're ready to bend these tabs over. Now you want to use a pair of blunt pliers. You don't want to use cutters. You want to roll that edge over, because if you cut that off, you got a big problem. Okay? Tap it down very carefully to where it rolls right on over. If you leave those sticking down when you go to put your seat together, those will tear your cushion. So be careful with that part of your seat. Now we massage it down and make sure that it all is lined up nice and straight. Jim's done a few hundred of these seats. You can snip off a little bit of that protective fabric. Snip off that trim. That's the way the factory seats look. Take a hog ring and grab onto your welt, and then reach down in and hook that on. You'll find a spring right underneath there. Go right down to that spring and squeeze it on. Careful how you do that, because you don't want to pull so much that it makes your seat pucker on the side of it. That's the way the factory did them. We're using professional hog ring pliers. Hog rings can be picked up in an upholstery supply, and you can get a pair of pliers there. We're cleaning up the threads here on the seat frame, getting ready to put the backrest onto the cushion. He's got a little die here that he's running over the threads. Now we're putting a piece of vinyl over the seat frame so that we can protect it, because as you put the seat frame on, it is possible to tear the cover. There's the trick. Hook the arm down underneath the seat and then push the seat pad in as you carefully pull the frame down over it. Now see there, that can catch on it, so pull it back and get it down over it. Okay. Now you can pull your protection out once you get your seat frame in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the arms down over the bolts, and you can just pry that up and over with a flat blade screwdriver. See how he did that? Okay. Now turn your seat over. Be sure you're working on something that isn't going to tear your seat up that you've already worked on. You want it on a carpeted table. And then pry that side up and let it down. There you go. Now you want to put your cap nuts on and tighten them up. Well, we just about got a seat completed. Got one more nut to put on the side. And you ought to feel pretty good about your work now. You got a nice looking seat, and it'll last you a long time if you've done a good job painting it and making sure that your frame was in good shape. Now most people probably didn't realize that your seat would lean forward. Did you see how he did that? He lifted up on that little hook and leaned it forward. Make sure that that mechanism is lubed again. Like I said, put a little WD-40. We use Gibbs. Gibbs is a product that we advertise and sell. It's a penetrant, and it's the best darn product I've ever found for freeing up sticky parts. The seat release mechanism needs to work freely. When you move the handle, it should spring back easily. If not, your seat could slide. There you go.